So just checking out the main electrolytic, it's a 4 and a 12. The 4 measures about 12 and the 12 measures about 25 microfarad. And both the new technology and the old technology agree on the values, so we can reasonably assume that's accurate. Leakage test, both sections were leaking constantly at 250 volts. But they seemed to reform and the leakage stopped. They're now up around just under the 400 volts and taking a lot longer to stop leaking, as you can see. But the first section stopped after about 10 minutes or so. So we're going to leave this a little while and see if it comes back and stops leaking. As I say, I have replacement parts on order anyway. So we might stuff this, we might not. We'll see when the time comes. Yeah, haven't had this guy out for a while. Nice to know he still works. This one is an unusual version of the solar because when you're setting the voltages for testing leakage, they're set up in reverse. So 5 is the lowest voltage and 1 is the highest voltage, which is very weird because you sort of have to disconnect the cap, set it to the lowest voltage, then and connect the cap, and then gradually wind your way up. Otherwise, yes, it's and I know most of them are wired up the other way around, which is good, so no idea why my one is wired up like that, but there you go. So while I had the leakage tester out, I thought I'd just, for fun, check all the paper waxes, and every single one of them leak at around the 250 volt mark or above, and they're all rated at 1000 volts, so I don't think we'll be keeping any of the paper waxes in this particular restoration. Okay, I think this whole area is done. We've pretty much done everything now underneath the chassis. There's a few minor things. The little button still has held up. It still delivers the 0.9 volts. But I'm having contact problems. I mean, the other side of this little brass contact is polished and shiny, but you know, if I squeeze it, I'll get the 0.9 volts out, but if I let it alone, I don't. So I have some more work to do there. Plus, I think it might be sitting a little bit below the base of the chassis, so I may have to move it a little bit. That's a bit done. I still have to obviously put the inductor in here when it comes and hope that's what it is. I had to put a couple of tag strips in because it was just a nightmare. When you took the big long caps out and put these little smaller ones in, trying to make the connections and try and keep the whole thing a little bit solid. So yeah, fortunately this is on the front face where I've had to drill holes, and that won't be visible when it's all in the cabinet, which has to be built because we don't have a cabinet. And I put a Y2 safety cap line to ground in the fuse holder, and so yeah, it's pretty much down to the power supply and the mechanical stuff at this point. So the main filter caps arrived today, and so I thought I'll stuff the can. Haven't done it for a while, or for a long time, and so I used the old can opener method to prise open the folded over end here, which makes a bit of a mess, but I can cut it off later. The actual electrolytic itself was all moist inside, so it hadn't dried out, even, you know, after all these years. Which probably explains why when I put it on the tester, the leakage tester, it reformed. And in fact, I think it may have had a charge on it, because when I stuck the pliers in to yank it out of the can, it got quite warm to touch. So I think we shorted out internally, and there was a passage of some electrons from A to B. Anyway, so it all seems to have come apart quite nicely, and it's all cleaned out and everything, and so these guys will easily fit in there. The tricky bit is going to be drilling the hole, as always, in these aluminium rivets, so you can bring the lead up and solder it on. But we will tackle all of that in due course. Okay, we're nearly there. So drilling the holes down through the aluminium rivets was fun, because the rivets are like solid all the way down and about an inch long, or 2 centimeters, whatever. And so of course the challenge is to stop the bloody aluminium melting and sticking to the drill bit. So lots of WD-40 until we got there in the end. And so I usually wrap the paper tape around them like this so that they don't rattle inside the can. So I've run 2 thin wires up to be the negative connection, and I will pinch them when I close the top. And hopefully that will all look nice and neat when we're done. Right, there we go, all in. It's not going to win any beauty contests, but that's not really the goal here. Right, I guess at this stage I'm going to have to put the transformer back in. I've been putting that off because it's so heavy. It's just going to make the set a lot more difficult to manipulate. But I guess now is the time. So at this stage I think I've done about as much as I can do before I fit the transformer, and the whole thing gets to be very heavy and unwieldy. So the inductor came. Actually came yesterday in late post. And so yes, so I put all the clutch mechanism here back together. It felt very sort of grainy when I put it back together, so I took it apart and I put some grease in the shaft here. And it's nice and smooth now. It feels really nice. So yeah, I guess that's probably it. I'm gonna do I've started to try and resurrect the glass dial, but that's going to take a while because it's in terrible shape. So I'll probably, if I can get the font and everything back together so I have an image, I'll just paste it on here first, white font on a black piece background, and later on, if I can, I'll see about putting it on the glass itself. We shall see. So it's tax declaration season over here, so I got to break this off for a little while and go and do a whole lot of paperwork. So once all that's out of the way, we'll be back to this again, so more to come soon.